Good morning. If everyone could take their seats, we'll go ahead and get the program started. So I'm going to try that again. Good morning. Good morning. Wonderful. That's much better. Welcome to the 33rd Annual Children's Network Conference. I'm so glad that you guys are here bright and early. I'm really hoping traffic wasn't too bad. But I'm so glad that you guys are here and are going to get to experience 2 very touching keynotes and 50 enlightening workshops. So it's going to be a great 2 days, and I'm so glad you guys all had an opportunity to be here. I'd like to begin the program by thanking our Board of Supervisors for their continued support of the Children's Network and its initiatives and events. It's actually because of a board supervisor resolution that the Children's Network was established. So today, to demonstrate that continued support, and we have in attendance Chairman Hagman and Vice Chair Gonzalez. So if we could give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our CEO, as well as the CAO's office for their continued support of Children's Network. It's because of the support of our Board of Supervisors, as well as our CEO, that we can put conferences like this on, or any of the Children's Network events. So I just wanted to say thank you for that continued support. In addition to that support, we really wouldn't be able to do this conference if it wasn't without our sponsors. So I'd like to take a moment to thank both our county and our community partners that so generously sponsored some of our conference here today. And I'd like to begin by thanking First 5 San Bernardino, San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, and it's actually because of their grant that we have the youth here. And so we have our youth over here. If I can hear you guys. Wonderful. We're so excited that you guys are here too. San Bernardino County Children and Family Services, as well as the Department of Behavioral Health, Children's Policy Council, which is Children's Network's Board of Directors, the Coalition Against Sexual Exploitation, which is the DBH program. We also get some state funding for the Commercial Sexual Exploitation program, and they were so generous to help sponsor this event as well. The IEHP, Loma Linda University Health Systems, the Department of Pediatrics. Mental Health Systems, there was actually 2 programs, the TBS San Bernardino and Success First. The San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. Crittenton Services for Children and Families. And Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. So thank you again. Putting on these kinds of events, it wouldn't be possible without the help and the sponsorship, so thank you. And I'd be remiss if I did not thank Brenda Dowdy and Andre Basu. It's actually because of their concerted effort over the last couple months over the summer to make sure that we have our youth here in attendance. So if I could say, have a round of applause for them. And then, of course, a lot of times we get asked, how do we put on a conference of 600 people? And a lot of times we have staff that comes in and they're like, oh, you must have like 20, 30 people working on this. And it's really just our staff of 10 at Children's Network. They take 6 months to work on this, led by our conference coordinator, Hillary Stinson-Ray, and of course, our volunteers. So to all our volunteers and our network staff, who is probably not here, they're running around making sure everything's set up. I wanted to say thank you to them as well for making this conference a success. I've kind of developed a little tagline for us. I always say we're small, but we are mighty. And finally, I would like to thank, there's a few people I'd like to thank for their support of Children's Network as well as myself. The Assistant Executive Officer, Cassania Thomas. The Presiding Juvenile Judge, Honorable Anne Marie Pace. Honorable Judge Marshall. The Executive Director of First 5 San Bernardino. The Director of Children and Family Services, Marlene Hagan. The Assistant Director of Children and Family Services, Jonathan Byers. President and CEO of Children's Fund, Sid Pinedo. Director of Department of Behavioral Health, Dr. Veronica Kelly. Assistant Director of Behavioral Health, Michael Knight. Director of Preschool Services, Phelos here. The Executive Director of CASA San Bernardino, Cesar Navarrete. I didn't see Cesar yet. And of course, our Program Officer from San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, Fawn White. And then again, just a reminder, before the keynote gets started, LCSW, LMFT, CEUs, if you guys need them, I'd run out right now into the exhibit hall and get those done. So, it's now my extreme pleasure to introduce Chairman Hagman, and he's been so supportive of our events over the years that he agreed to come back for a second year in a row and make the welcoming remarks. So if I could please have Chairman Hagman. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me back, and thank you for keep growing this wonderful, wonderful event. We'd like to welcome you to the Ontario Convention Center, who we had here, I think the last 3 or 4 years, at least as long as I've been on the Board of Supervisors, been here. And as you notice, the food's not that bad, right? You're going to spend 2 days here. They have an excellent chef, and they have good food, so I'm looking forward to your other meals throughout the day, and hopefully it's just as good. But this is the 33rd year of doing this. We want to thank the Children's Network for putting this on. And you guys get it right. You are investing in our future, our children, and you have to work together. My biggest frustration at other levels of government is we all used to work in silos. What's in front of us we would do, but not knowing what our neighbor is doing. But you guys are doing it right. For over 3 decades now, you're sharing those experiences, you're sharing that expertise, and we're very proud to support you for doing the good work that you do for our residents and our children in our county. This conference remains as one of the Inland Empire's premier training events for professionals, including those in the fields of social work, mental health, juvenile justice, child development, and child welfare. Really, we're really invested into our kids and our future here with your help. The goal of the conference is to provide the latest research, findings, evidence-based, promising practices that will equip local professionals to continue to serve children, families, and our community members throughout the county. This year's conference theme focuses on the importance of positive interactions with youth and how those interactions develop resiliency in the lives of our children. Our keynote speakers today, Christina Meredith and Mark Anthony Garrett, will share their own personal experiences related to positivity and resilience. There are over 50 workshops available to provide the county and community service providers with knowledge and tools to better serve vulnerable children and families. Workshops like trauma-informed care and psychopractic medications, the San Bernardino County experience, fighting teen suicide, and engaging fathers in Inland Empire. All very important things that we're dealing with currently here. It's our hope that the conference attendees will walk away from this experience with renewed passion to make sure that the interactions they have every day, whether children or families, are positive, as we never know how they shape the trajectory of someone's lives. And you know the Inland Empire is growing very rapidly right now throughout, one of the fastest bright spots in the United States. And your investment into our children day in, day out are very much appreciated by the entire Board of Supervisors. And we just want to support you any way you can. Thank you for all the good work. Thank you for coming to Ontario on this conference and investing 2 days of your life to collaborate with your peers and make things even better for us here in San Bernardino County. And have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chairman. And I think you're correct. I think that San Bernardino prides itself in the collaborative effort that we do. I don't think it's ever that we start a program just within our own silos. I think we really, really work together collaboratively, especially for our youth. So thank you for that. I would now like to introduce Vice Chair Gonzalez. She has also been very supportive of our events. Most recently, she actually did the opening remarks at our Shine a Light on Child Abuse Awards breakfast. and she's here again to make opening remarks. So once again, if you guys could please clap for Vice Chair Gonzalez.
All right. Good morning. Yikes. Year after year, are we doing it or are we doing it? We're doing it. Come on. Come on. Give yourselves a hand. We're doing it together. You out there who touch children's lives in a multiple of different ways are the reasons that the children today will have when they succeed, when they look back, one day standing in our shoes, and they say, I made it because there was a person, there was an individual who touched my life. And that is a reason that hangs in air to be completed, to be accomplished by you. And that is the reason that I come out year after year. And that is the reason that our chairman, Supervisor Hagman, believes in how we will continue to be strong. Today, I welcome you to the 33rd Annual Children's Network Conference. It's my honor once again to be here with all of you this morning. This year, our theme is understanding the importance of positivity in the lives of our children and how these positive interactions help to develop resiliency. Resiliency is an important term that comes to us in many different ways, but it definitely comes into the child development world. What does resiliency mean? It means that if you've got a cheap pair of shoes and you wear them all the time because you really like them, they probably won't be very resilient after a year or so. If you have an expensive pair of shoes made with really good leather, a good sole, you can wear them and wear them and wear them, and they will be resilient every time you clean them. Resiliency can be something how good a blouse or a skirt or a pair of pants. What's the material? Is it resilient? You look for these things. And then many times we look at minerals and we say gold is resilient. Silver can be cleaned and come back and look brand new. Resilience in our children is invisible until you make that child smile. And it is in that smile, in that shifting of a moment in which the feeling of hope happens, and that is the polish. That's the elbow that makes the grease go in and polish that child. Polish them, make them feel resilient. Studies have shown that we are all born with different degrees of innate abilities to be resilient. And this resiliency is crucial to the development of a strong, self-sustaining character and the traits that must be honed, must be identified. Social competency, empathy, caring, compassion create an identity, a sense of self, a task mastery, if you will, that leads to creative thinking, that leads to the resilience component. A sense of purpose and belief in a bright future is the reason that we work toward resiliency. Unfortunately, as we all know, many children in our world are living in extremely difficult, stressful situations that complicate at times and surely hinder the development of their resilience. But while someone may start in a bad environment, they need not stay there, and they need not stay there because of you. Because of you, the reason that can make the difference in a child's life. Later on today, you will be hearing from our keynote speaker. And I believe that there is a great deal to be learned, to be incorporated, and to be assimilated into our own lives from what you will hear. There are the positive mentors, the positive influencers in life that help all of us achieve that level of our own resilience that help us then to turn around and enable others. This year, I see some new faces. Can you raise your hands, those of you that are here for the first time today? Wow. Thank you. Wow. That's a pretty good crowd. Welcome, special welcome to you. For those of you that have not heard some of the sharing that I've done about my past, I will briefly say this to you. I too had a very difficult past, no different than many of you. I do not know who my biological mother is or was, and I was raised by a stepmother who was, I want to say, probably 25 to 28 years my father's senior. And they, in the old days, made a contract where she would raise his child, and in return, he would take care of her in her senior years. It was an extremely difficult life, a just extremely difficult situation to grow up in. I, by nature, believe it or not, in spite of this microphone and what I do, I am very shy. I am more comfortable in the back. I'm more comfortable in the kitchen. I'm more comfortable cleaning than I am doing what I do. But I will tell you this, that there was one time where I felt something change inside of me that drove me. I was invited when I was about 8.5 years old. I was invited by the lady down the street to go and spend the night with her little girl. I never had done that, and I was never allowed to do it again. But I went, and that lady tucked me in at night. She said, "My, you're a pretty little girl." And I had never heard that. And she tucked me in, and in the morning she woke us up. Her daughter's name was Jeannie, and she woke Jeannie and I up, and she had made us little baby pancakes with little Mickey Mouse ears. And I didn't know who Mickey Mouse was. I never went to Disneyland. I didn't know what birthdays were. I didn't even know when my birthday was. And so there was something that I saw in this woman, in the way she looked at her child, a way I had never, a look I'd never seen before. And I remembered it. And when I went home, I would look for that in other people. And slowly, I realized that kindness was an endangered species. And that even though kindness is free, people are stingy when it comes to giving kindness. I share this moment with you all once again because I want you to know that I know what kindness looks like. And I see it in all of you. I see it in you, in your actions, in your words, in your commitment, and in your dedication to the chosen profession that you have. And that you too must be recognized for the value that you bring today in the lives of children who rarely, in many, many cases, see kindness, may not recognize kindness unless you give it in a moment, through a smile, through the sound of a kind word, through an action. And that is the business that we are in together, the business of growing strong communities that are led by strong people who have overcome challenges no different than yours or mine, and who will one day walk through these doors and many other venues to stand up here and speak to other people and say, come on, together we can do this. Together we can grow resilience and we can share it. And we can ensure that there is a strong future with safety involved. I will say that in closing, it is I know that it is we in this room and across many other venues who are the true believers in the future. That through kind actions, we can impact and make a difference in the life of a frightened and insecure child. Because many of us, if not all, at one point in our childhood, could have been, and perhaps was, that frightened and insecure child. Our children have the ability to walk through adversity as long as they have two things, very basic things. As long as they have somewhere to walk to, that there is a goal, there is a safe haven, there is a reason for them to keep moving forward. And the second, the kindness from someone to walk with, that person can show them the way to get to where they're going, and that's you all. You are the signs along the roads, along the pathways that guide the lives of so many children. We were all children once, and we all have had challenges that either we are still working to overcome, or we have overcome them and moved on. But regardless, our children today will be us tomorrow. We must be the reasons that they will remember that they made it, that they overcame, that they were able to confront, and they were able to deal and incorporate with what past they will have to deal with. It is up to us to transform our schools, families, and communities into the kind of environments that will allow our children to grow in said manner. In a trusting environment with a sense of belonging that is cultivated by meaningful relationships with their teachers and with you all and the departments that you represent when they need us. It is always a pleasure to be able to come and speak to you. that I might be able, in some small way, to touch you because someone many years ago touched me. And I look for that kindness in all of you. I look for that resiliency. I look for that success, because ultimately, we are how we treat each other. I thank you so very much for your hard work. You know, I've got 13 months left in office. November of 2020, I will be exiting this stage. And if for whatever reason I am unable to come back and thank you, I thank you today for the kindness you all have shown me, for the resiliency that you've allowed me to grow into as a public elected official, and for the opportunity you've given me to help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And I just want to say thank you because your passion is evident, and I think we're all benefit from having her here today. I think what the Vice Chair has said is correct. You guys are all here today because you want to make a difference. And I want the youth to understand that this room, the 500 adults in here, they're here for you. So take this opportunity today to really network, to really see who's in your corner, because this room right here, we're in your corner. So understand that, take advantage of that, and I really, really hope that you guys have a good day. So a lot of times, we put this conference on because it falls within the goal of Children's Network, which is to identify the gaps and overlaps in services so that we can be more effective in the in our service delivery system. This ultimately helps to improve the communication and collaboration to better serve our children and youth in our county, which, like I mentioned before, we do that so well. Children's Network truly functions in a collective impact model. So anytime we roll out an initiative, whether it's this conference, whether it's our fatherhood initiative, our maternal mental health, we make sure that we have the appropriate departments, community-based organizations at the table, because we understand that we can't do this alone. And it's so nice to have a county in which everyone works in that sphere. So I just want to say thank you for that. Lastly, I say that Children's Network, we work collaboratively towards improving the system of care for our youth. And so I think that's why we're here today, is really to look at all of the workshops that we have and really take some emerging best practices that are here, and especially learning from our local professionals. We do that purposefully because we understand that we don't need to bring somebody out nationally, that there is the expertise right here in our county, and we should be tapping into that. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Christina Meredith. Christina's story exemplifies the importance of positive relationships. She credits her teachers and her junior ROTC program at her high school for saving her life. Christina celebrates the transformative power of education and the potential within all of us to triumph over adversity. She encourages all of us to look within to find the strength and to achieve our highest goals and our dreams. So it's my utmost pleasure to introduce Christina Meredith.
Thank you, ma'am. You're too kind. How are y'all doing today? It's a good-looking crowd. Good-looking crowd. Where are all my youth? Wave your hands up there, guys. This is for you, okay? I want you to know that. Okay, so my name's Christina Meredith. I am a former foster youth. I have 10 brothers and sisters, and my story is a little bit crazy, which is how I got a book deal. Children who grow up in what I call the perpetuating cycle of poverty and abuse do not have the same outcomes and opportunities as children with stable, loving homes. They go from being children to a number on a data sheet that reveals awful truths about how this country actually deals with their displaced youth and orphans. I know some things about statistics. My entire life I was told I would end up adding to the statistical data, rendering it true. I can't tell you how many times as a child my mother told me that I was going to be addicted to drugs, dead in a ditch, prostitution. I was good for nothing. The only thing I was good for was doing the laundry or scrubbing the floors, whatever it is that she had me do. Children do not have to end up as a statistical number attributed to the horrifying facts linked to the foster care system. I'm standing here before you to tell you and to show you that anything is possible. When I was a little girl with towhead blonde hair, long before I started having to highlight it every 6 weeks, I would wear my older sister's hand-me-down dresses, and we lived on top of a hill in upstate New York, surrounded by cornfields. And behind our house, we lived on a few acres. Behind my house was a cemetery, and behind the cemetery were pine trees. Acres and acres of pine trees. When my mother wanted someone to pick on, when she needed a scapegoat, when she wanted to take out her anger and punch me or kick me or demean me by calling me names other than my real name, I would run away as far as I could in my little hand-me-down dress, which usually had tatters on it, but I didn't care. And I would run deep into the pines. And once I found the prettiest pine tree that I had thought was pretty at 7 years old, I would lay underneath it, and I would look up at the beautiful big blue sky, and I would take my little hand and I would cover up my eye to cover the sun, and I would dream. I would dream of the most magnificent things. I would dream that I was a princess, and someday I would be rescued from the tyranny of my mother by some amazing prince. I dreamed that I would change the world, that not only did I have someone come and rescue me with love, but I had a purpose. I dreamed crazy things. Sometimes I would take my Barbie and my brother's Donatello, and I would take them into the woods with me and play with them. It was the most amazing time for me. It was the only time that I was safe from my mother's kicks and punches, safe from her tying me down into a chair, pouring palm olive into my mouth until the palm olive had burned through my gums. And she would let me go at that point, untie me and let me go. See, underneath the pines, I had the greatest gift that we all have been given, the gift of dreaming. Out of everything that has been taken away from me in my life, no one has ever been able to take away my ability to dream. A few years later, my father would be unjustly placed in prison. My mother had an affair with a very powerful man in our very small town. He was the sheriff. He was a lawyer for the sheriff's department. And so in one fell swoop, my mother claimed that my father hit her. And one day when my father was coming home, and I ran out the door to meet him because he was the only one when he was home to protect me from my mother. See, my father had 3 jobs, taking care of 8 kids, and his whole purpose in life was to make sure we went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade. And so when he was around, if he wasn't working his 2-3 jobs, he loved me and protected me, and it was the only source of love that I ever had. So on this day, when my mother had called the police against my father was coming home, and I ran out to meet him. He scooped me up on his hip, and he was like, "Christina Bina, how are you?" And I just hugged my dad's neck, gave him a kiss, and then all of a sudden in the background you hear sirens, a few of them, which is not unusual, until you see them speeding down your street, getting out of the car, barrels at my father, telling them to put me down, that he was no longer allowed to be here and he had to go with them. My father laughed as if he was convinced that it was a mistake, because it was, and I immediately started crying. So after a few minutes of this scuffle, my father looked at me and he said, "There's a misunderstanding, don't you worry, we're going to clear it up. I'm going to go with these men." And he put me down in the middle of the street and he ordered me back to my house. And I walked back to my house with tears. And I watched 2 police officers put my father in the back of a cop car, and I didn't see him again until I was 18. When I got back into the house, I was devastated, to say the least. But my mother came down the stairs and beat me because I made her look bad in front of the police by crying. Soon after my father went to jail, my mother got married to her lover, and they had a child on the way. And so it wasn't long before my mother and her new family were gone all the time together, which meant her stepbrother, who lived in the duplex upstairs, was spending a lot of time with us kids. I remember the exact place, the exact time, the exact smell, the exact thing I was wearing, and the exact feeling of utter disgust and shame the first time my uncle sexually assaulted me. I was 9 years old. My mother never fed us. She was never there. So I was malnourished, scrawny, quiet, shy, and conditioned to be abused for whoever my mother saw fit. By the time I was 10, I had bald spots all over my head. See, the abuse was so bad. My mother had called me out and separated me from my siblings for so many years that I didn't have a name. My name was laundry lady, or bitch, or slut, or things I can't say in front of you because they're really bad. Those were my names. And so dealing with that abuse and then dealing with the sexual abuse, my little body did not know how to cope. And so I started pulling out my hair by clumps, subconsciously, even in my sleep. My teachers at school were starting to make abuse reports because I'd be sitting at my desk, pulling out my hair, pulling it out one by one. I was already so different at school because I still hadn't learned to read. Trauma can do that to you, you know. A child has been abused for a very long time, can't academically be as equal as their peers because their frontal lobe is scientifically different. Instead of being able to learn to read and write and enjoy going to school, I was crippled academically because I was tormented with fear and emotion and psychological abuse and emotional abuse and physical abuse. It changes a child. Other kids started making fun of me when the bald spots on my hair started growing back in. They gave me a new name at school. Well, it wasn't a new, it was my first nickname ever at school, Spike. Because when the bald patches started growing back in, they came in spike. You know, like a boy crew cut, how it's really spiky? Well, I had that all over my head. And so Spike was my new name. So on the bus, I would be tormented by kids who didn't understand me and didn't like me because I was quiet and shy. And I can tell you that a middle-aged comb-over does no favors for a 10-year-old girl trying to cover up all the bald spots. And then I would go home, and if my mother was home, I would be beaten or given to tasks of chores to do because I was in charge of all the chores. And then I would be raped by her brother. There was nowhere I could go for peace. I was in constant misery. At this point, I'm 12 years old. I've never finished the 7th grade. I never went to 8th grade. And my mother didn't want anyone to find out about her brother raping me because her husband was now running for a judgeship in town. And so my mother and Everett decided to lock me into a closet for a very long time, so long I cannot tell you how long. All I can tell you is that I woke up with piles of hair next to me because I was so devastated. I had wet myself several times. and I tried to kill myself with an I Love My Lipstick plastic lipstick top. It did not do the job. If anything, it made me exhausted because I tried so hard. After I tried killing myself in that dark, small closet, I woke up in a haze of disbelief. Here I was, 12 years old, unable to read, unable to get my mother to love me, and not even smart enough or good enough to kill myself. My soul was crushed into ash by the age of 12. In that dark closet, something happened to me. A supernatural hope came down, covering me with feelings of love and acceptance and joy, and most importantly, hope. Feelings I had never known before outside of this moment. And it is my hope that one day you can feel these feelings because they will change your life. I decided that God must have a plan for me and must want me to live if I couldn't kill myself. And I decided right then and there that I would fight with everything in me to never be like my mother, to never give up again, and to fight for those just like me. I believed that one day I would be set free from the tyranny of my biological family, and that I would be able to set free others who have been abused and neglected by their own families. I decided right then and there that I would never give up hope again. According to Webster's dictionary, hope is a feeling of expectation and desire for certain things to happen. It's this yearning deep inside of you that you want something so badly. And more than anything, I wanted to not be like my mother. Just as I had dreamed underneath the pines as a little girl, fairy tales and princes, that feeling washed over me again in that closet, and I began to dream and hope again. I wanted my own family. I wanted laughter and kindness to fill my home. I wanted a husband. I wanted kids. I wanted normal. I wanted PTA meetings. I wanted lunch after church on Sundays. I wanted these things. And I wanted to be nothing like my mother. I would laugh. I would love. I would make the world a better place. And it was in those dreams, in that moment of hope that manifested into me that day, that I knew that no matter what, everything was going to be okay. It might not be easy. It might be hard, but it was going to be okay. A few years now have gone by, and my mother has started to farm us kids out to several different homes. There's 8 of us. My parents were married for 15 years. They had 8 kids together. Father's in jail. Now she's married to her new husband. They have a child. They have another child on the way. And so basically my mother had a whole new family, and us kids were just left to fend for ourselves. And so she started farming us out to different homes, which didn't last very long, right? We had the black trash bags, and we would show up at a new home, and then a few days later they would drop us back off at our mother, and she would farm us out to a different home. But during this time, one of the families that we were with, me and my little sisters were with for a few months, decided that they were going to enroll me in a pre-boot camp ROTC for high school. Now remember, I didn't finish 7th grade. I never went to 8th grade. And after my mother had locked me in a closet, I was locked into the house for over a year. Did not leave the house. So I was well below the ability to probably be in high school academic-wise, right? Still hadn't learned how to read, stumbling over my words. I had all kinds of issues. So somehow, this family enrolled me in pre-boot camp, ROTC, at Nice High School, and I showed up wide-eyed and excited because it was the first thing I was actually allowed to do for years. And I get there, and there's this man in a uniform standing there like this with a clipboard and a coffee mug in his hand. He's like, "Young lady, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm looking for the quarterdeck, sir." The quarterdeck's that way. "Cadet, you need to get moving." And I had no idea what had happened, but I started running. I ran all the way through the high school looking for a quarterdeck because I had no idea what that was. Then all of a sudden, I peer around the corner and I see other kids my age in the front leaning rest doing push-ups with uniforms all around them, yelling and screaming and demanding they do all kinds of things. And I was like, I think I found that quarterdeck. And part of me was like, they didn't see me. Maybe I'll just leave. And the other part of me was like, this looks awesome. And so I went in and I stood there in front of these uniforms and I said, Master Chief McFarland told me to come to the quarterdeck. And then I got hazed really bad. And I was down in the front leading rest with the rest of my peers. And that was it. I did 2 weeks of pre-boot camp, ROTC, and I fell in love. It was the first thing in my entire life that I was ever good at. The first thing that I realized that I could do. Now, for a girl in my circumstances, for years and years of being abused, for years and years of not being called by your own name, for years and years having different dinner times and different rules as your siblings, siblings not even allowed to talk to you, siblings not allowed to play with you, you're not allowed to eat at the same time, you're cleaning up the dishes after your family has eaten. I was markedly treated differently. And so for me to be able to be in a program with other kids and beat them at push-ups and sit-ups, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Somehow between the state's attorneys and different foster homes and all of my PTSD, because I was diagnosed with PTSD at 11, because DCF started coming around when I was 9, because of the abuse reports, but because my mother was married to a very powerful man, it got swept under the rug for a very long time. But even with all of that hardship and heartache and trauma, I stayed in ROTC all 4 years. It's astonishing to think that that could happen for a girl like me. And it's because my teachers, my first sergeant, my master chief, and my captain didn't give me a choice. They didn't care what was happening. Christina Meredith was going to be at 0500 SEAL team practice, and I was going to be there for every national meet, and I was going to be there for drill practice, and I was going to show up and get my uniform squared away. And also they fed me every day, so I stuck around. Sometimes those kids like us, we only get fed when teachers feed us. It's just true. I know that was me all 4 years of high school. If those men did not feed me, I probably wouldn't have survived. Because I wouldn't have. The best thing that ever happened to me was ROTC. The best thing. It single-handedly saved my life. Those teachers saved my life. There was with Master Chief, First Sergeant, Captain running around with their whistles and their clipboards and their no-nonsense attitude, there was not a chance in hell that a girl like me was going to get in trouble. Well, at least too much trouble, you know. It was amazing. I lived and breathed and memorized everything that the United States had done in the military because I fell in love. And I was absolutely obsessed with Chesty Puller. I'm not sure if you know who he is. He's a badass. You need to look him up. Oh, there we go. Hoorah. Semper Fi, friend. Senior year. It's the first semester of my senior year. And I left my foster home that I was in. I loved them very much, but they were unequipped and unknowledgeable about how to deal with a kid with PTSD. And they had children of their own. And they were married for 35 years. They had 3 kids. They had never wanted for anything. They had a beautiful, beautiful family. And then here I come in, and I'm having night terrors. I've never had my own room before. Never had a bed before. My mother had locks on the fridges most of the time, if there was even food in there. And the different homes that she farmed us out to were much like the same. And so when I got to this normal, stable, loving home, there was no class or no knowledge of how to integrate a child with trauma into that. And so I'd be stealing all of the food out of the pantry and hiding it in my room. I would hide it in my backpack. I would hide it in my everywhere. I would literally hide food everywhere because subconsciously I didn't know when I was going to eat again, and I was going to make sure I was going to eat. And so there's all kinds of little things that caused issues with me living with a family, a normal family. A couple of the other issues was their kids thought that I was getting favored treatment because they would buy me new shoes and new backpacks, but that's because I didn't have any. But I can see now as an adult how a child can find that offensive or threatening. And so there's all of these dynamics going on, and I just felt like I was tearing apart their family, and I loved them so much. And so when I turned 18, the first semester of my senior year, I hightailed it out of there with the same thing that I came with, 3 black trash bags. Too easy. That same year, I applied for the ROTC scholarship. So the ROTC scholarship, only a few cadets get it each year, and it's very competitive. And basically, you have to have a 4.0 plus, and you have to be AB student, an IB student, and AP classes, and a stellar athlete, and the cream of the cream of the cream of the crop. And you can get a 4-year ride to the Naval Academy or, different schools that take ROTC scholarships. And I knew in my circumstance that if I didn't graduate high school, I was going to be in trouble. And if I didn't get this scholarship, that I was going to be in trouble. And so for 4 years, I worked towards trying to get the ROTC scholarship because the only thing that I ever wanted to be in my entire life was an officer in the military. And so my senior year, after I left my foster home, I filled out my packet with my captain, and I submitted it, and he looked me cold in the eyes, and he goes, "Meredith, you know this is a long shot." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm good with long shots because I don't quit." And he goes, "I know." And so we submitted the packet, and a few days later, I was rejected again. And I was devastated, absolutely devastated that I did not get this ROTC scholarship. And I cried for a very long time. And after I cried, I wiped my tears, and I decided, girl, you gotta find a new plan because you don't have a backup. And so I sat down, and I figured out what I was gonna do. I graduated high school, praise God. That is a feat in its own, by the way. And I bought my first car, my 2-door Chevy Cavalier, bright yellow like a school bus. I called her Sunny, and I loved Sunny so much. And a week after I graduated high school in May, I moved into Sunny because I didn't have a choice. I was working 2 jobs. I was working as a valet attendant at Castlematic Hotel, which is a 5-star hotel. It's very famous in St. Augustine. And I was working at Smoothie King making smoothies. The funny thing about the valet job is it took me 3 times to get my driver's license because no one taught me. And so my senior year, I would tell my friends, let me be their DD, and they would give me their keys. Not knowing I didn't have a license. They were just so thrilled that someone would DD them, and that's how I taught myself how to drive. Facts. You have to think outside the box, okay, when you're trying to get ahead. There's a few times I stalled in the middle of the highway and I didn't know what to do, but I figured it out. I never told them that I almost destroyed their clutch, but it's fine. So there I was, living inside of Sunny, working as a valet attendant where I had just received my license a month prior, and making smoothies. Living in Sunny, I learned so much. I lived in her for almost a year and a half, and my life changed for the better when I was homeless. And not because I'm not going to tell you, oh, it was amazing because I'm I'm a minimalist and, is carefree. No, it changed me because it created a character and a grittiness in me that I have to this day. Suffering has a way of chiseling out of us a grittiness. Suffering has a way of chiseling out of us a tenacity. Suffering has a way of chiseling out of us a character of integrity that no one can take away from you. It's just true. Who I am today as a person is because of all the things I have suffered and endured. Living in sunny was also miserable because I lived in Florida, and it's hot, and Sunny didn't have AC. And so the wintertime I was freezing and it was okay, but once summer hit, I was really hating life. And I didn't know how to cope with that other than going out to on the beach. They had the resorts, right? Because I lived in Jack's Beach. Lived, as in I parked my car to different places every night. And so they left their cabanas out for their guests. And when it was really hot, too hot to sleep in your car with no AC, which is like every night, I would walk out to the cabana in my bathing suit, just in case someone saw me, and I would sleep there. And then it was the only time that, I was still sweating to death, but it was better than sleeping in my car. Being homeless was not easy. It was very, very difficult, and it was really hard to keep employment. So I left Smoothie King and I got a job at Village Inn. Anyone know Village Inn? No? It's like a Denny's, except we only sell pies, right? And so I had the late night shift, which we called the drunk shift, because it was from 7 p.m. to 4 a.m., and that's when all the bars closed and all the drunk people would come in to get their pie. And drunk people love pie. They love pie. And so I would make the best tips. I would pour them their coffee and I would hand them their pie and they would give me all their money. And I was so excited because I would just put it in my little envelope called apartment. And it was great. Only 2 months later, after not figuring out how to wash my clothes or take a shower, because you don't think about things like that when you're homeless, by the way. But I learned real quick the luxury of having a shower whenever you want. I got fired from Village Inn because my uniforms were consistently dirty. There's a shame that comes with being fired for dirty uniforms. I was a good worker. I never had any complaints, showed up on time, worked my whole shift, no issues. But because I could not keep my uniforms clean, they had to let me go. I suspect they found out I was parking behind the parking lot, sleeping there every night, but who knows? Also in Sunny, I began to dream again, but these dreams came not with my permission. One of the nights that I was sleeping out on the beach, it was really, really hot that night, like stifling hot, even by the ocean breeze. And I just looked up at the stars and I was like, okay, Lord, I just need more than 2 hours of sleep because it's really hard to sleep for more than a couple hours when you're homeless. I don't know why that is, but it is. And on this night, I woke up with this crazy vivid dream. And the dream was that I was standing on stage in nice clothes, speaking to thousands of people. And I was like, what? I'm literally covered in sand at 3 o'clock in the morning, sleeping on a cabana that's not mine. Like, what is this? I was angry. But night after night, month after month, these dreams kept coming and coming and coming and coming. And I was angry and bitter and so annoyed at this point, shaking my hands at God, going, what? This is insane. But after some time, after the Lord had worn me down, I decided that I loved these dreams because it was an escape from my horrible, hard reality. And I started to write these dreams down. And I wrote all of them down, and I wrote them down to the color. Like this one dream, I had a dream I was wearing a red dress. I know, it's weird, but I wrote it down. And soon after I started writing down these dreams, I started dreaming. It's like they got into me. It's like they got into my soul. And I started dreaming again. Because when you are homeless and you have no family and you have nothing, you can be robbed of some things, like hope. Remember I talked about hope? It came to me in that closet that day. Well, it had been many, many, many years since I had experienced it again. But after the dreams had gotten to me, I started hoping again subconsciously. Like, what if? What if this could be? And so once that happened, I started writing down all my dreams, and then I started writing down all of my goals outside of the dreams that I had. And I had this journal. Can I tell y'all? This journal was if someone had taken my journal while I was homeless at 19, they would have thought I was crazy. Like, girl, this ain't gonna happen to you. Do you see where you are? You can't even, you're homeless living in your car and your clothes are filthy. Like, this is not gonna happen for you. You need to figure it out some other way. But no, I was not gonna quit. These dreams, I dreamt I was gonna write my story, my memoir, I could publish a book. I had a dream that my book would turn into a movie. I had a dream that I would launch a nonprofit for foster care kids, and I would reform foster care in its entirety. I had a dream, continuous dreams of me standing on stage in front of thousands. Dream after dream after dream after dream. And then I was convinced that those dreams were for me and they were mine. And so I started writing down my 5, 10, 15, 20-year goal plan. Hope had walked back into my life in the form of dreams. Again, something no one could take away from me. No matter how hard it was, no matter how much shame I felt, no matter how much dirt was underneath my fingernails and sand in my hair, I could dream, and no one could take that. So with that, I saved up a lot of money working as a maid in the morning and a bartender at night. And I saved and I saved and I saved, and I eventually got custody of one of my little sisters. That was rough. They hate you more because they want a sister, but you have to be a mom, so that's a very complicated dynamic. But that's a whole nother story. That was just a sidebar. So anyways, my sister was living with me, and I was working often at the bar and maiding, working as a maid, and I saved up enough money to move to California. After the year and a half of me working several jobs and getting my own apartment, I worked for several more years doing those two things, and I decided that California was the place for me because remember, I had written down a dream book that I was going to write my story. I was going to publish my memoir. I was going to change the world. I was going to reform foster care. I was going to do all of these things. And so I talked to my sister, who was an avid surfer. She was semi-pro, and she was like, too easy. It was like sealing the deal right there. And so we packed up everything that we had, and I drove across country in a U-Haul, and I landed in LA with a little bit of something. Not much, but enough. And there I was a few weeks later, minding my own business, walking through the Whole Foods, ordering something kale probably, because I was obsessed with food. Sidebar, because I went through so many years of neglect and malnourishment from food, so many years of having locks on fridges and not being able to eat, and there's so much fear and anxiety around food. To this day, most of my budget is on food. I can't leave my house if there's not a full stocked fridge. I know that's weird, but it's true. So I'm in Whole Foods ordering the best food money can buy, and this guy comes up to me, and he's like, I don't know, I got a vibe like, ooh, okay, guy, why are you following me in every aisle? And he stopped me, he goes, Miss. And when someone calls you Miss, you're like, okay, that's weird. He goes, Miss, have you heard of the Miss California pageant? I was like, no, I in my head, I'm doing the no, but really I'm like, no, sir, I haven't. And he goes, well, you should really look into it. And then I thought, I'm not 6'1", and also I literally have never done, I don't know anything about pageants. I never went to prom. I had to work a double on that day. I had spitting contests with my first sergeant. I mean, let's remember, I was ROTC all 4 years. I was a tomboy to the T. This took years of cultivating. Don't let me fool you, okay? I will throw boots on and get in the mud and go shooting and hunting and fishing, and too easy. So there I was, being approached by this recruiter, but I didn't know he was a recruiter. I literally thought he was just trying to get a date. And so I took his card, I threw it in my purse, and I went about my business. Well, then that night, curiosity got the cat, and I was the cat. And I Googled it, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this could change my life. See, I had moved out to California because I wanted to change the world. I wanted to write my memoir. I wanted to publish my book. I wanted to start a nonprofit. I wanted to reform foster care. I wanted to make mental health issues and PTSD a topic of academic conversation because there's healing when we talk about it, right? And so I looked at Miss California and I said, self, this is a good opportunity. You can do this. And then the other side of me said, no, girl, you cannot do this. No, girl, you can't. Have you ever even worn a gown? But then the other side of me was like, I'm freaking doing this. This is happening. And it happened. And so I went out to the city I was living in, and I applied to be the queen of Miss Ventura. And so I was Miss Ventura, and I had to do all kinds of other community work and volunteer work. And after I got approved to be in the state pageant, I knocked on business to business for several months, and I raised close to $15,000 to compete. Now, I'll tell you that pageantry is an expensive sport. I didn't know this. In my mind, I was like, I will rent a gown, walk on stage, tell them my mission to change foster care. Too easy. Done. No, it's not how it works. $15,000 is like on the low scale for pageantry. So I raised that money. I found a few people in my community who believed in me, who'd coached me up, literally taught me how to walk in heels. It's something like this. Let's see if I can still do it. Don't laugh. Yeah, see, I learned this. I learned some things. The other thing was they were stitching me up in, so you have to have interview clothes, right? Like interview outfits where when you're sitting down in front of the judges and you're doing your interview and you're terrified and you want to say the right thing, but you also have to look the part. And so these two women, bless their hearts, who just, really took care of me through this whole process and experience, were literally stitching me up into the thing because I had gained like a pound. And so they're stitching me up into this thing just before the interview. And so I'm walking like this, and the heels were a lot longer. The heels were like 2 more inches in this. I don't recommend that. And so I'm walking into the interview, and I sit down, and I tell them the cold, hard truth. I want to reform foster care. That's why I'm here. I don't want a modeling contract. I don't want anything. I want a platform to be able to help abused children like myself. And I think that's why I won, to be honest, because it was so markedly different from these other girls. And so that night on stage, after weeks of competing, because you have to do several different things before you actually get to the day of competition, which was very stressful. I'm on stage. There's beautiful women all around me who have been doing this for years because pageantry is a sport. This was my first and only pageant, by the way. I'm standing on stage, top 3, so there's like 3 of us standing up here, and then they call my name, and I start crying hysterically, but not because I won the crown, not because they were handing me flowers and everyone was like, oh, it's amazing, it's new Miss California. I cried because they said my name. They said my name. I heard my name over the loudspeakers, and millions of people have since heard my name, Christina Meredith. Because remember when I was growing up for years and years and years, I didn't have a name. I didn't have a name. My mother called me bitch, slut, whore, stupid, dumb, idiot, worthless. Those were my actual names for years. And so when Miss California pageant crowned me and said my name, it changed something in me and brought some healing to some trauma instantly, like that. It was beautiful. It was a really beautiful moment. Miss California opened up a lot of doors for me. And I'm so thankful that I was terrified, but still took that door and walked through that opportunity. My hope to become Miss California turned into hard work to get there, but it turned into mission accomplished. Since Miss California, I have gone on to launch the Christina Meredith Foundation, where I am actively pushing for policy reform at the state and federal levels. Two things that are important to me that I talk about often. One, mandatory trauma therapy for every child in care, and so they can be whole and healthy, and so we can stop this perpetuating cycle of abuse. It has to. We will make no change until that happens. Because what happens is they end up in the foster care system, the welfare system, the prison system. People don't like to talk about this, but 80% of prisoners are former foster youth. That is despicable to me. Despicable. We're setting up our children to fail in the worst ways. I'm like, what else don't you know? A few years ago, I did enlist in the United States Army. I'm an E5 right now. Hey, thanks for that. We got some soldiers in here. And also, a dream of mine to become an officer in the military will come true because I'm part of University of Florida's ROTC program. Well, I commission in a few months to a lieutenant. Cinder Girl is doing amazing, my book, my memoir, and I also signed with Management 360, which is the #1 Hollywood management company in the industry, and my book will be turning into a movie. Hope put into action is called hard work. Hard work, defined, is a great deal of effort and endurance. There's no substitution for hard work. You must pay your dues accordingly to achieve what you have set out to accomplish. Now, when I wrote my task list down, my goals down, my dreams down when I was homeless at 19, I'm 32 now. I worked tirelessly all through those years. Hard work pays off. Hope to hard work, mission accomplished. That's how it goes. Here's the secret to changing the world. Write down your goals. Write down your plan to reach these goals. Start working towards these goals without quitting, no matter the cost, no matter what it looks like. If someone told me at 19 that these crazy dreams that I was having would come true, I would have laughed them into the grave and then probably cried because it's just mean. It's just mean to tell someone, oh yeah, you're gonna be an author. You're gonna be a national speaker. You're gonna be an officer. Oh yeah, you're gonna do all these things. You're gonna change the world. It would have been so mean to say that to a girl in my circumstance. But can I tell you that hope turned into hard work turns into mission accomplished? It doesn't matter that it took me 12 years. It's immaterial. See, people give up too early. We're in this society where everything's a microwave. You gotta be a crockpot. You tracking? Slow. Put all the ingredients in, let it sit, because it's worth it. You can't tell me that a meal in a crockpot is not better than a microwave meal, because I just know it's facts. We are a lot more capable, and we are a lot more brilliant than we think. Some of you out here in this audience need to dust off your own journal of dreams and goals. Some of you out in the audience need to not give in so quickly to defeat and failure. Can I tell you how many times I was rejected for my book proposal? Can I tell you how many times literary agents told me I wasn't a good fit? I wasn't a name? Can I tell you how many times I was told my story was too this, too that, too boring, too emotional, too raw, not enough this? Over and over and over again for years, I got no's and rejected. No's, no's, no's. But guess what? It only takes one yes. And I happened to get the most amazing literary agency to pick me up. And HarperCollins is my publisher. See what I'm saying? So all those people that told me no missed out, big time. Because I got the one yes 10 years later. You can't quit. You can't give up on your dreams. Whatever you have sidelined that is important to you, that means something to you, you need to pick it up again. What have you given up on? Have you put hope to the side? Have you given in to practicality and realism? Well, I am that 110%, because I worked 2-3 jobs this last year, these last 10 years, trying to make my other dreams come true. So don't be that guy who's like sleeping at your mom's house being like, I'm gonna be a famous musician. No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about working hard and working hard towards your other dreams at the same time. So you gotta pay your bills. You gotta be an adult. But you can't give up just because it's hard. Life is hard. Life is hard even if you don't go in foster care and are abused and don't have family. It's a lot harder, but life is still hard. You can't quit. Years ago, I set out to reform foster care in its entirety, and I've made some meaningful movements towards this goal. I go to DC often, and I speak to legislators, I speak to senators, I speak to Congress, and I tell them the importance of the mental health budget and why we need one, and the importance of mandatory trauma therapy for every child in care. The second pillar to my advocacy for my foundation is mandatory after-school activities for kids in high school. Have to, because that's what saved me. Those teachers are saving lives. Those programs are giving purpose and structure and everything that a child needs to be normal. It's the only normal they're going to have. So it's critical that we give that to them because it will save their life. I don't need to tell you this because this is a room full of people who are well attuned to the crisis of abused, neglected children in foster care. But I'm going to tell you anyways. There's 500,000 children in care right now. 20,000 of them age out each year. The statistics that surround this population is horrific. There's no normalcy, no stability. Trash bags is a normal thing. Every home that I ever moved into was black trash bags. Why other kids their age are obsessing about who to date, who they're taking to prom, what college they're going to go to, what car they're going to buy. Kids like us are working two shifts at Denny's with a uniform covered in ketchup, trying to figure out if we're going to pay our car payment so we can still live in it, or if we're going to get groceries. See the difference here? It's unfair. It's not right. It doesn't have to be that way. I was 9 years old when the Department of Children and Families started knocking on my door. I was 10 years old when the abuse reports started coming through because of the bald spots in my head and the bruises and the black eyes and my reclusive behavior and my inability to read apparently caught some eyes. I knew when I was in high school that the only thing that would save me was graduating high school. I did not have the same luxuries as my peers to go to parties, to be carefree, because I did not have mommy and daddy there to scoop me up if I had done something dumb. I know y'all understand that. We're on our own. There's no one there to save us if we do something stupid. And I knew that acutely. And so it was my mission in life to graduate high school. And I did, thank God. But when I aged out, I kept pursuing my dream of normal. Even though I was homeless, even though I had nowhere to go, even though I had nobody, I wanted normal so badly. I'll share this with you, sidebar. I speak to foster care children all over the country, and I always ask them the same question. What do you want if you could have anything in the world? Do you know what they all say? I swear, all of them say the same thing. A family. They want love, they want stability, they want a place to go home to where no one's going to kick them out, or beat them, or yell at them, or treat them like they're unequal. No, they want a loving, forever family. That's what we all desire. To this day, That's my number one. I'm still waiting for Mr. Right to come around. He's late. It's okay, though. He'll make up for it when he does get here. After I didn't get the RTC scholarship, I knew college was an option for me, and so that's why I began working and devised a new plan and went out to California, which was the best thing for me. But I did overcome my hardships of foster care and abuse and all of those things with hard work and with good Samaritans along the way and with my faith in the Lord. But I'm telling you, not every child in foster care has that same opportunity, because there's a lot of people who just ignore these kids. They just look at them as trouble, or they look at them as inconvenient because it's too much work. They look at them as broken. They look at us as unfixable. And I'm standing here before you to tell you that anything is possible. Healing can occur. You know what we need? Unconditional, sacrificial love. You can love a child into wholeness so you can break the cycle of poverty and abuse. It happens. That's how it's done. I stand here before you, and I want to do two things. I want to thank you for being a part of today, a part of this conference, a part of changing the lives of children, because it's you who makes the difference. It's you who's going to change a life. It is you who has the ability to have a child on a trajectory towards the perpetuating cycle of poverty and abuse, or put them on a trajectory towards success. And I'll say this, children who were in foster care not only had to grow up quicker and build more resilience quicker and are more emotionally in tuned than their peers, they are more apt to perform better and succeed more than their peers when put in the right opportunities, because they have the experience that their peers don't. Children who have suffered can overcome more. They can do bigger and better things. I am a testament to that. I shouldn't be here according to the statistics. I shouldn't be here according to what the foster care guardian ad litems and social workers and DCF and all those people said. They called me an anomaly. No, I'm not. I'm just like every other child in foster care. I just didn't quit. I didn't quit. Because guess what? Kids who have suffered aren't quitters. We're not. We're not. And so I just want to thank you for enabling them and allowing them to not quit, because you're changing a life. I'm asking each of you today to dust off your own dreams. Work for something that matters. Whatever stirs in you that you can't sleep at night, that just drives you to passion, it drives you to change, that's your calling. Don't give up on it. Don't quit. It might take a long time. It might be hard, but it's worth it because you're worth it. I dare each of you to dream big. Dream big. Kids, dream big. Don't let anyone tell you that because your circumstances are the way they are, that you can't achieve anything you want, because that is a lie. Yes, you can. But it's going to take hope and hard work. But you have that in you. Same for y'all. You can achieve anything. One person can change a life, and one life can change the world. And I'm asking you to continue to partner with us today, and we can change the world together. Thank you.
Wow. I think what Christina said is absolutely correct. Each one of you youth here today, you guys have a purpose. Each one of us in this room has a purpose, and we have to remember that, because that is the #1 protective factor. When we're talking about resiliency, we have to make sure that our youth find their purpose, because just like she said, the instability, sometimes we forget that, but understanding that each one of you has a reason to be here, and each one of these adults in this room can help make sure that we find that for you. So I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Christina. And I just have a few more announcements to make before we get our workshop started. Again, just for the CEUs, for those of you who do have them, you can pick up your certificates at the end of today, and then if you're coming back tomorrow, you'll re-register and pick up those certificates as well. Centerpieces, I walked in and I was like, wow, I was like, these are beautiful. And I know we are notorious for giving our centerpieces away, but that won't be today. It will be tomorrow at lunch, so please, if we could just leave those here. There will be an activity of sorts for you guys to go ahead and pick those up tomorrow. Lastly, workshops are set to begin at 10:45. I know we're running a little bit late, but Christina will be doing a very brief meet and greet in the exhibit hall, and at 10:45, you'll have an announcement in the exhibit hall to head to your sessions. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you for being here.